Welcome to Toolbox Time. My name is Kristen Jordan Koenig, and I am a GIS specialist with the Kansas Data Access and Support Center, also known as DASC. And my email address is available if you have any questions or need to get a hold of me. And this video is a component of the Kansas NG9-1-1 GIS training for the Kansas NG911 Toolbox. And if you do not have a copy of the NG911 Toolbox, but you are a maintainer for Kansas NG911 data, I'd recommend that you download one from kansasgis.org. And in this edition of Toolbox Time, we're going to be taking a deeper look into the check TN list and geocode prepped TN list tools. And as you can see highlighted with the pink box, these tools are located under the MSEG Tools toolset. And so that's where you'll find those. The tools we're covering today, there are three related but different tools that share very similar elements. So just for a bit of disambiguation, you're going to be interested in the Check TN List tool if you have AT&T as your PSAP's provider. And this is something that you'll need to check with your 911 department about to see what the situation is. Another tool in the MSEG Tools toolset is the Create MSEG Locator tool. And we're not going to be going over this one today or possibly ever on Toolbox Time. This is a rather specialized tool, but you can use it if you just want to create MSEG locators from your NG911 data. This step is included in the Check TN list and the Geocode Prep TN list. Those tools both create MSEG locators from your data, but the Create MSEG Locator tool will not do anything with those locators. It just creates them and leaves it, so you can use those for whatever purposes you want. And that's the end of what we're going to talk about that in today's presentation. The other tool we are talking about is the Geocode Prep TN List tool. And this is the tool you're going to use if you do not have AT&T as your provider. So you might have CenturyLink or another phone company as your provider. So if that's the case, you will use the Geocode Prepped TN List. So what is a TN list? This is a list from the telephone provider, and it has all the landline phone numbers included in your PSAP. With each landline phone number, it also includes the physical address for that phone number. And it's currently used for 911 dispatch. When a call comes in, the phone number of the landline is directly associated with its address, which is then sent to the MSEG file, run across a comparison for where that address is against the MSEG, and then internally it picks the right dispatch center for where to send that 911 call. So it's incredibly important for sending landline phone numbers to the correct dispatch center in the event of a 911 call. So why do we have these tools? What are the goals between Check TN List and Geocode Prep TN List? This tool is preparing for the transition in Kansas to geospatial call routing. And for this to occur, the TN list, all those landline phone numbers, have to geocode with 100% accuracy to your NG911 data. All of those landline phones need to eventually have a physical place, so that with geospatial call routing, that physical place is associated with a PSAP of where a 911 call needs to go. So these tools check to see if all landline phones in the TN list will geocode to your NG911 data. To do this, the tool does quite a few things behind the scenes, and the first step is essentially creating a workspace folder and a working geodatabase in which to put the locators and products from the geocoding routines that it's running. Some products we put inside the NG911 geodatabase itself, but for this we decided to keep the workspace separate just to keep everything nice and tidy. So as it's going through its processing, the tool will create locators that are in the folder, and the key about these locators is that it's using the MSAG attribute as the city place. So it's actually going to create 3 locators. It's going to create a locator for the road center line, a locator for the address points, and then a composite locator that first cascades through the road center line locator and then the address point locator. And the composite one is what the tool uses at the end of the day. So after creating the locators, the tool then imports your TN spreadsheet as a geodatabase table. This is very important because at this step it also assigns a unique ID number to each TN record. The TN records, as they come from the phone providers, do not have a unique ID number with them, so this step assigns it for them. If there's a phone number with AT&T, it will use that. If not, it will create a unique ID that's essentially unique for this particular working session. After that, it geocodes the TN table against the composite locator that was created. And the intent of this is to also skip any VoIP or cell numbers that are in the TN spreadsheet. And of course there will be those. And hopefully those will be skipped as much as possible. And after the geocoding routine, it will report back any issues to you that it has found of addresses that might need some attention and the like. So getting your TN list is a very important component of doing this tool. And there are instructions for getting the TN list from AT&T, and that's in your docs folder, and that's included with the Toolbox download. It is also online in the doc folder, and so that's how you can get all the info on getting your TN list with AT&T. If you have a different provider like CenturyLink, check in with Sherry Massey with Dickinson County, and she can provide instructions on how to get that. But please be advised that getting the TN list can take some time, and so please be patient as you're working with your phone provider to be able to get that. If you have AT&T as your provider, you do not need to do any prep work for your TN list. You can just drop it in the tool and go. It is a little bit more complicated, and you do have to do some work if you do not have AT&T as your provider. You need to convert your TN list to an Excel format, an XLS or XLSX. A lot of times you will get it as a CSV, so you just need to open it as Excel and then save as a spreadsheet. And as you're doing this, also take a look at all your column names and remove any spaces that are in there or any special characters, number signs, hashtags, dashes. You can leave in underscores, those are fine, but that's the only special character that you can have. And also take a look at the sheet name, which is in the bottom pink circle. Make sure that you remove spaces and special characters in there. Again, underscores are okay, but these steps will really help your tool processing actually work. And big hint, if your sheet name is already TN query results with spaces, that means you have AT&T as your provider and you do not need to do any of these steps. So continuing talking about prepping your TN list, you will need to create a column for full addresses in Excel. Your spreadsheet has to have something that can be geocoded. So then you'll have to create a formula that populates the full address column with the concatenated full address, including the city. And here are a couple examples of acceptable full address formats. You can include the state, you don't have to include the state. And I'm presuming that you're familiar with Excel and know how to concatenate columns, and if you're not, Google it. So just a reminder for concatenations in Excel for strings, you can use the ampersand symbol, and that will work to get your concatenation done. So to actually then run the tools, there are complete directions called MSEG tools. Again, they're in the doc folder that's included with the Toolbox download. Also, it's online on GitHub in the doc online folder, and I will try to remember to include a link to that in the YouTube portion of this. So again, if AT&T is your provider, you will use the Check TN List tool. If you have someone else as your provider, you will use the Geocode Prepped TN List tool. So now we will actually demonstrate how this works. So Dickinson County and Lynn County have been kind enough to let me use their data as an example. And Dickinson County has AT&T as their provider, and Lynn County has CenturyLink. So we're going to go through both tools today. To start with, we're going to use Dickinson County's data with the Check TN List tool. So that is, again, under the MSEG tools tool set of our toolbox. And we need to bring in our data. Should have probably navigated all there already. TN. Okay, here we go. So we're going to pull in. This is just an extract of Dickinson County's TN list, since these things tend to be really big. These tools can take a while to run, but that's just how life goes. Actually, we're just going to drag and drop their geodatabase in here. So then we're going to hit OK, and it'll take a moment for that tool to run. And as you can see in the contents, a folder was created. It has the same name of the geodatabase that you're working with, but then I'm adding _TN to the end of the folder name. And that's where the working geodatabase, the locators, and everything relating to this tool are going to be kept. That's our nice workspace container, so that everything's nice and tidy and doesn't clutter up your NG9-1-1 geodatabase. So this tool does take a while, even with just the extract. I tried to make some of the reporting fairly entertaining. I didn't think it was going to take this long. So I'm probably going to pause this and come back when it's done. So sorry about that. I forgot this was the entire Dickinson County extract instead of a selection of it. And so that took a little bit longer than I anticipated. Anyways, you can see the output from the tool, that it converted all the spreadsheet records to a geodatabase table, and that it's skipping VoIP rows, that it's creating locators, and then it geocodes the TN addresses. And after it runs the geocoding, it reports on how many records did not geocode. So now let's jump into the working folder and see what the components are. Our locators are here, the address, road, and then the composite. And just to kind of show you the guts of the composite locator, these are just some properties that shows which address locators it is comprised of. And this is a hierarchy, so that it passes the data through the road locator first, and then anything that doesn't get a hit in the road locator, it passes on to the address locator. So that's how you can double check and make sure that the composite locator is set up correctly. But honestly, it's all done in code so that it is done exactly the same way over and over again. The results of the geocoding are going to be in this TN working geodatabase. So in there, we have our TN list that was imported, and that is a direct copy of the spreadsheet. I should not say a direct copy. It is select fields from the AT&T provider list. The check TN list only brings over a selection of the fields and not the entire spreadsheet. It only brings over what it needs. So then after the geocoding process, it creates a feature class, as with all geocoding, that shows the locations of where it placed the addresses. And you can look at the table, and this status field is what's going to show us what matched, what is unmatched, and what is tied in terms of geocoding. And so far, an M means matched, and then you can see the score. And this is where you're going to want 100% on everything for geospatial call routing to work. So we can sort on this column. Let's do a reverse. And U is the code, the status code for unmatched. And then T down here are the codes for geocoding ties. And in this case, we do not want geocoding ties. That means there's some level of confusion about where that address actually goes. And we don't want any confusion. We want 911 calls to be routed accurately. And so these are something that you probably will have to take a look at inside your data. So then after the geocoding runs, this other table is the geocoding results that will report back the unmatched and the tied records from the geocoding process. And it's also going to give us the unique ID that it created. This unique ID relates back to the TN list, and it's a column at the very end. So that's how you can do a join and see exactly which fields are having problems. So that's a brief overview of running the check TN list. So now we're going to do a brief example on geocoding the prep TN list. The steps on this are slightly different. We're going to drop our NG9-1-1 geodatabase in for Lynn County. And for the Excel spreadsheet, we are going to pull that in. And this we actually need to drill down to the exact sheet just to be able to specify exactly what we want done. And I've already prepped the Lynn County data and created a full address field. So we're going to specify that's where the addresses are that we want to geocode. So with that done, we're going to say OK. And I know this has a smaller amount of records, and so this shouldn't take too terribly long. So like with Dickinson County, it's going to create a working folder with the geodatabase name, but then with TN appended to the end. And that's where it's going to create the locators again. It's going to create the geodatabase that will have the import of the TN list, as well as the geocoding output and any results from the geocode that didn't work. So as a heads up for Lynn County, with the extract I had, everything geocoded perfectly. So I did have to add one record that didn't work. So I could use that as an example of how you look up any issues that you have afterwards. Yeah, the data I got from Lynn County was quite good and it matched everything up nicely. So I did have to create a junk record in there, but I got their permission to do that. So as you can see from the tool output, it has created locators and geocoded the addresses. And as expected, one records did not geocode. And let's take a look at that. So again, we have our locators and our TN working geodatabase. We can see our output of the points that geocoded correctly. But then also in the table, we can see that our last record here is a U for unmatched. Everything else matched at 100%. So now I'm going to show in ArcMap how we can start taking a look at data that didn't geocode. So we're going to bring over our TN list to ArcMap and also our geocoding results. Make him smaller. Okay. So for our TN list, let's go ahead and open that. And we can see it's just a small subset of the Linn County data and has things broken out into the address components, and that's when created the full address column. And then the tool assigned this NGTN ID as the session-specific unique identifier, which is important because in our geocoding results, it's going to tell us which ID is unmatched. So this is where, especially if you're working with a large record set, you're going to want to be able to do a join between your TN list and the geocoding results, so you can take a look at what did not geocode. So we're going to tell it, run the join on the NGTN ID. We're going to join to our geocoding results table, also on the NGTN ID. So okay, and then in our TN list, now we can see at the very end that table joined up correctly. And the one record that did not geocode is our last one, which is 5555 on Kristen Road, which they had a Thomas Road. They might as well have a Kristen Road, but that did not work. And so now would be the time to take a look at your data to make sure that there's an appropriate address range in your road center line for that specific address, or even a specific address point that you can create to represent that landline phone number. So that's a very brief overview on the check TN list and the geocode prep TN list tools. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Otherwise, please take a look at the help documentation online. And hopefully this is a good tool for making sure that your TN list and that your NG911 data are as ready as possible to transition into NG911 geospatial call routing. Thanks for watching.